Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Venezuela wants its gold back. Let's explore. That's right, Venezuela wants its gold back from the Bank of England so they can help fund fighting the coronavirus in the crippled economy of the nation of Venezuela. At least that's what they're saying they want to use the money for from the sale of the gold. But they have filed a legal claim with the Bank of England over their gold stored there. This is brought to my attention by a resident bouncer, Eric. Venezuela files legal claim with the Bank of England. This comes to us from BBC. Venezuela has launched legal proceedings with the Bank of England to try to force it to release a $1 billion worth of gold, of their gold that is stored in the vaults there in the Bank of England. It's being retained following British and U.S. sanctions on Venezuela. Venezuela says it wants the Bank of England to sell part of the Venezuelan gold reserves to use the funds to fight the spread of coronavirus. It says it has agreed for the money to be sent directly to the UN to ensure it is not used for other purposes. Okay, well, we'll see. Although I tell you what, I don't know that I would trust the UN to necessarily comply that be used for other services either. But and the article goes on here. So what they're proposing is for the funds to be transferred to the United Nations Development Program to administer the purchase of supplies like medical equipment to fight COVID-19. And the legal wrangling comes amid fears about the ability of Venezuela's crumbling healthcare system to handle the outbreak. Yes, indeed. And apparently the country is in a lot of trouble even before all of this had gone down. Legal documents say the bank wants the transfer made as a matter of urgency, and it filed a legal claim to that effect in a London court on the 14th of May. With lives on the line, now is not the time to attempt to score political points, Sirash Zwayala, a London-based lawyer representing Venezuela's central bank, said in a statement. The UN told the BBC in an emailed statement only that it had been approached by the Venezuelan bank to explore such mechanisms. The Bank of England declined to comment when asked about the case by Reuters news agency. And again, for those who aren't aware, there's about 100 and some odd nations that don't recognize Maduro as a legitimate leader of Venezuela. So letting this gold go would be essentially giving it to a regime that is not legitimate as opposed to Venezuela, the people of Venezuela. So why is Venezuela's gold in the UK in the first place? The Bank of England is the second largest keeper of gold in the world, with approximately 400,000 gold bars. Only the New York Federal Reserve has more. Well, shoot, I kind of would have thought that Fort Knox would have more than that. But anyways, it has one of the largest gold vaults in the world and prides itself on never having had any gold stolen in its more than 320-year history. Amazing. Central banks of a number of nations use it to store their national gold reserves, and Venezuela is one of them. Despite the country's oil riches, Venezuela's economy has been in free fall for years due to a combination of government mismanagement and corruption, further exacerbated by international sanctions, and I will add in there socialism as well. As Venezuela produces very little apart from oil, it needs to import goods from abroad, for which it needs what it needs to access to foreign currency. But with oil production a fraction of what it once was, Venezuela's foreign currency reserves have been dwindling. The government of President Nicolas Maduro turned to selling off some of the gold reserves kept in the central bank in Venezuela to its allies in Turkey, Russia, and the United Arab Emirates. I think, didn't Iran also buy some of their gold? Or maybe some debts to Iran were paid in gold. I thought I covered that in a prior story, but it goes on. The U.S., which does not recognize Mr. Maduro's government, last year warned bankers, brokers, traders, and facilitators not to deal in gold, oil, or other Venezuelan commodities stolen from the Venezuelan people by the Maduro mafia. And Venezuela has reportedly continued to sell gold to its ally Iran. Okay, I thought that was the case, which is also under U.S. sanctions. But even so, its international reserves reached a 30-year low at the beginning of this year, Venezuelan central bank figures revealed. It badly needs hard currency and sees the gold stored in the vaults of the Bank of England as the solution. So the stance for the Bank of England itself is interesting. Venezuela first approached the Bank of England at the end of 2018. Finance Minister Simon Zerpa and Central Bank President Calixto Ortega traveled to London to demand that Venezuela be allowed to take the gold back to Venezuela. In January 2019, the Bank of England refused the request. All it said publicly was that it did not comment on customer relationships. The decision, however, came just days after Maduro's rival, Juan Guaido, had declared himself president, arguing that the 2018 election, which returned Mr. Maduro to power, had been fraudulent. In fact, I think you can find that that's why over 111 some-odd nations around the world don't recognize Maduro as a legitimate president. Mr. Guaido, who was quickly recognized as a legitimate leader by more than 50 nations, including the UK and US, asked the Bank of England not to hand the gold over to the Maduro government, arguing that it would be used for corrupt purposes. That's right. The British Minister of State for the Americas at the time, Alan Duncan, said that the decision was a matter for the Bank of England and its governor, but added that no doubt when they do so, they will take into account that there are now a large number of countries across the world questioning the legitimacy of Nicolas Maduro and recognizing that of Juan Guaido. At the same time, top U.S. officials, for whom President Maduro has long been a thorn, who were also lobbying their British counterparts to cut the Maduro government off from its foreign assets. While the Bank of England never went beyond saying that it did not comment on customer relations, it is thought that international sanctions on Venezuela and regulations on preventing money laundering influenced its decision. Venezuela's offer to have the funds transferred to the UN directly are designed to circumvent those regulations. And we'll see. Yeah, there would literally have to be something that would have to be meticulously accounted for. Every dollar or every unit of currency that would be used from the sale of the gold to be able to provide COVID-19 relief for that country. And my guess is it would probably need signing off on from Guaido as well. Keep in mind, Guaido was not democratically elected, but he will be an interim president, essentially to set the stage for democratic elections in which he could lose. But, typically what happens, and I hope this wouldn't happen in the case of Guaido if he were to become the interim president for Venezuela, is that he doesn't become a dictator as well. But we'll see. But nonetheless, anything's got to be better than Maduro at this point. But we'll see how this plays out. But gold just goes to show you, this is just another example. The big lesson here is gold is money. It is something that has been recognized as money for thousands of years, and central banks are relying on the security of the central bank of London there to store their gold. And so, now Maduro wants it, and we'll see how this plays out. Fascinating indeed. Thanks again to Eric for sending this along to me. Post your thoughts below. And where do you store your gold? And I think the best way to store your gold is somewhere safe, not in your exact location to where it can be had. Store it off-site, but off-site where you know you can get it, people you can trust to store it for you, or at some facility. Yes, indeed. Believe you me, it's always good to have confidence that your gold is safe. No matter, even if you don't have the luxury, if you have a way to keep it safe at home, but where you can get easy access to it. So there you have it. Post your thoughts below. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.